Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today we have Tijen. When Patrice was trapped inside the dark armor that made him become MMO monster, Tijen broke the curse and rescued him, helping him become the light hero he is today. Now Patrice and Tijen have become inseparable, sharing their life and battles with their dear friend Cloud. And so Tijen is the newest and latest light legendary monster with a pretty cool ability, or a pretty cool trait I should say, of anticipation. I just feel the need to talk about it right now. When an enemy performs a skill with an extra turn, this monster performs an extra turn just before. This is so awesome. So the only time we've seen this trait was with Faraday, who was meant to counter Voltic and Zyla and just about any extra turn monster. But now we have another monster that's available to just about any player. It'll probably be a premier monster that can do this. Anticipation, that's awesome. But just how awesome is it? Well, we're gonna have to take a look at the stats and skills to find out whether or not this trait is even good on this monster. And so let me start off by saying that this monster is in the female book, the Good Legends book, and the exclusive book. And aside from that, being a light legendary monster, there's a total of 34 of them, so she has a good amount of competition, okay? With that said, her power is 3300. And in the light legendary category, this power puts her in 21st place, so she's not necessarily on the stronger end of light legendary monsters. And then as for her life, it's 28,651, which puts her tied for 22nd place with monsters like Kasai, Monkey, and Demise. So she's also not that tanky. Both her power stat and her life stat, they're below average in the light category. But then we have her speed stat of 3498, which is the new to-go speed. This is like the speed that the elite fast monsters have. Now the thing about Tijen is, I don't believe she even needs a speed this fast. It was the same with Faraday. His whole thing is anticipation. He doesn't need to be fast because his trait does his speed for him. If you fight an extra turn monster, Tijen will get a turn in if her speed was 0. But going back to light legendary monsters, in the light category this puts Tijen tied for 5th place with monsters like Alkaline and Ravish, the speed stat itself being the 4th fastest. The only monsters faster than Tijen are Gakora, Lum the Magical Matriarch, Lao Lao, and Kasai. So of those monsters I just mentioned, really it's only the Nemesis monster Lum that has denial potential, and then Gakora has team evasion, but Lao Lao and Kasai, they're more of attackers or supporters. And then as far as the monsters tied with her, Alkaline and Ravish, those are types of deny monsters. So definitely Alkaline, he can do cooldowns activated and stun. Ravish can do total blind. And I'm saying all of this just so all of you out there know what monsters with her same base speed can do. But with that being said, again, I don't think this monster even needs to have a fast base speed. You were not going to put 3 speed runes on this monster. It would be pretty useless because it's just anticipation that's going to do all the work. So with that said, let's move on to her ultimate skill, Spooky. Spooky? Deals massive light damage to all enemies, applies bleeding and poison to all enemies. All I gotta say is, wow, this is a really good ultimate, and it makes me wish she had a higher base power. It's still good, right? Because once again, her base power was 3300, not good in the light category, not really good overall. But this attack is 70 damage, and it applies 2 torture effects, bleeding and poison. Bleeding will reduce HP by 15% for 3 turns, and poison by 10% for 4 turns. That is incredibly powerful, and this seems to me like, even though she doesn't have the highest power, and this skill might not pack that much of a punch, the DOT, the torture effects, they definitely will. So even if you're facing a monster that has extra turns, like a Voltic or a Zyla, the bleeding and poison, if it lands on them, it is really going to do some hefty damage. So ultimate skill, I like it on this monster a lot. And so now we get into analyzing her basic skills, and the only thing I want to say about skills group 1 is to test out these skills. They're both 50% chance to land. One is a 50% chance to poison, the other is a 50% chance to bleed. The thing about 50% chance skills is that sometimes they're 100%, in which case they might be worth running because they have no cooldown, so they're spammable, they can use them whenever you want to. Yao is particularly interesting because it deals no damage, costs 24 stamina, once again no cooldown, and it just removes good effects. So depending on how you run this monster, assuming it's team speed, all team speed, you're going to want this monster to have some sort of skill that can just do something to the enemy. And by do something, I mean something like removing good effects. That is an awesome thing to do for a monster that isn't there to attack, isn't there to deny, but just there to support. So Yao might be useful regardless of the kind of runes you go, unless you go strength runes. If you're running strength runes on Tijen, then just don't run Yao, it's not needed. With that said, in skills group 2 we have Poison Knuckles, which deals heavy light damage to one enemy and applies poison to one enemy. 45 damage, 22 stamina cost, 1 turn cooldown, and it poisons. It's really basic. And then we have Sharp Gloves, deals moderate light damage to one enemy, applies bleeding to one enemy. So Poison Knuckles and Sharp Gloves, they're upgraded versions of skills group 1, but again, just make sure to test out those other skills because if they do land 100% of the time, they're better because they're spammable. But yeah, Poison Knuckles and Sharp Gloves, they're really basic. We'll come back to this after we discuss skills group 3. Then we also have Outcry, again, upgraded version of skills group 1, but this one deals heavy special damage to one enemy, removes positive status effects from one enemy, 2 turn cooldown, 50 special base damage, 21 stamina cost. So far nothing too interesting. Let's take a look at skills group 3. We have Stamina Hole. Deals heavy light damage to one enemy, removes 100% of stamina from one enemy, requires cooldown. So this skill deals 50 light based damage, costs 34 stamina, has a 3-turn cooldown, and it's a 100% stamina drain. And there are so many ways this skill can work. So for example, if you're facing a Voltic, he does an extra turn skill, you can immediately go in the turn order and drain his stamina, which will prevent him from attacking you endlessly. So that's one strategy you can pull off. Or of course you can also stamina drain a different enemy. So if you look at the turn order and you see after Voltic it's someone else, someone more menacing, you can stamina drain them and prevent them from attacking you. Now the problem with stamina drain is that it appears that there are so many monsters that can hold relics that recharge stamina, or after their stamina falls below a certain point, they get stamina back. Like for example, if you were fighting a Zyla and you do Stamina Hole against Zyla, she most likely has a recharging banner anyhow, so even if you drain her stamina, she's just going to recover and she's going to be able to attack you even more. So Stamina Hole won't necessarily work, but it definitely can work. And so it goes without saying this is a must-have skill, but again, we're going to discuss Tijen in the grand scheme of her anticipation trait in a little bit. Forget Me Not is the next skill, deals heavy light damage to one enemy, activates all cooldowns on one enemy, requires cooldown. 50 damage, 39 stamina, cost 3-turn cooldown. This is really awesome. It does cooldowns activated. Now, the only thing I will say against cooldowns activated is that there are so many monsters that have 0 cooldown skills. But hopefully you've played the game long enough to where you kind of know which monsters have 0 cooldown skills and which monsters don't. And even if a monster does have a 0 cooldown skill, hopefully you know how strong that skill is. But against a monster like Zyla and Voltic, again, this doesn't do anything. They have 0 cooldown skills, and then they're free to attack you. But against your everyday monster, even if it doesn't prevent them from attacking you, most of the time it will prevent them from doing their strongest skill, which is what you want. And then the last skill we have is Loud Outcry, which deals moderate special damage to all enemies, and it removes all positive status effects from all enemies, requires cooldown. So here we have an AoE, 30 special base damage, 32 stamina cost, 3-turn cooldown, remove good effects from everyone. So now that I've gone over all the skills, I do like Forget Me Not, and I do like Stamina Hole, and I do like her anticipation trait, but I gotta say this really isn't the best monster that can have anticipation. Maybe it's because my mind directly goes to Voltic and Zyla and how to counter them, and she can't really pull it off, that I think she's not the most effective monster. If it's countering someone like a Barak or an Isofex that have extra turn skills, against them she might be a little better at denying them, because Forget Me Not, you do cooldowns activate against Barakor and he's pretty much denied. You do cooldowns activate against Isofex and he's pretty much denied. Stamina Hole, that might even work against both of them. I know Barakor off the top of my head has a Mask Relic, which would probably recover his stamina, so probably wouldn't work. It all depends on the relics they wear, right? But again, when my mind automatically gravitates to Zyla and Voltic, I don't know how effective she is against countering them, because this is all she really has in terms of denial, and it's singular denial. Her other skills removing good effects, which could be useful, but it's not going to save you. And then her other skills are bleeding and poison, which it's nice if they land, but you know, Zyla has Bulwark, 50% chance to not get hit with bleeding or poison, and then Voltic has Harden, 20% chance to not get hit with poison or bleeding, so that might not even work against them. And if it doesn't, they're also gonna just attack you endlessly. What made Faraday really good was that he was a thunder monster, so even if you're facing a 130 Voltic, a 130 Zyla, their thunder attacks are gonna be really reduced against Faraday. But against Tijen, she's just a light legendary monster who isn't even that tanky, so she's super vulnerable. Like Voltic can probably take her out in 2 hits or 3 hits, Zyla the same. So she's very spongy against those types of monsters. Even other extra turn monsters like Isofex, like Barakor, if they land an attack, Tijen might be taken down unless you have a life rune. So I don't know how I feel about this monster. I love the anticipation trait, don't get me wrong, but I'm scared on how useful she actually is. I will say that obviously it's better to have a monster with anticipation than to not have one, because, you know, if you don't have one, then you have no chance of winning. But if you do have this monster, hey, maybe you can pull off a win, so it could work out. But I don't know, I really don't know. I think this monster could have been way better if she had something like Thunder Resistance. How cool would that have been? Thunder Resistance to your whole team, considering it's really a counter to Zyla and Voltic that we need. Just like 50% less damage from thunder attacks, because then she could stay alive more, which would allow her to do more, like cooldowns activated like Stamina Drain. Or if she had a team or an AoE Poison and Bleeding, that would have been awesome. But just singular skills, I'm not really sure how I feel about this monster. To ruin this monster, I guess you could go 3 team speed, or 2 team speed and a life is really what I would advocate, since she doesn't have the highest life base stat to start with. And as for whether or not she can take on Voltic or Zyla, well, I would say if they're within 1 or 2 ranks of Tijen, then she probably can. Zyla's out of the question if she has a charging banner. There's no taking down Zyla or an enemy team that relies on Zyla. For Voltic, if you can stamina drain him, you can probably take him out, because that'll make him recharge and then it'll allow your team to do something. Against other extra turn skills, as I already mentioned, like Barakor, you know, you're going to take a hit from him, but then if you can cooldowns activated him, he's pretty much immobilized. Montezuma, same thing. If he does the extra turn skill fatigue hit and he poisons you, gets an extra turn, you can do cooldowns activated against him, he's pretty much done for a while. Isofek, same thing. There are plenty of monsters, especially lots of the team race monsters that have extra turn skills. Not Shork. If Shork does his water hater and then you get an extra turn, yeah, you could probably stamina drain him. So just against Xylan Voltic, I think she'd have the biggest problem. Against your monsters that have one extra turn skill, she might be quite useful, so don't completely dismiss her. If it sounded like I was dismissive in this video, she may be useful, she may not be that useful. We won't really know until we actually get to use her. So that being said, that is going to be my analysis on Tijen. Actually, let me go back. My recommended skills, just the must-have skills, are Forget Me Not and Stamina Hole. As for her other skills, I'd probably have to say Loud Outcry, and then I'd probably go with Bleeding, just because Bleeding takes away 15% HP, whereas Poison does 10%. So that would be my recommended skill set. For runes, once again, probably a life and 2 team speed. And that is going to conclude this analysis. Now I want to hear from all of you guys. What do you guys think about Tijen? Do you like her? Do you dislike her? How effective do you think she is against a monster like Xylan Voltic, which was the majority of my video? Let me know in the comments below. I am really looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts on this monster, especially since she's the second monster with the anticipation trait. With that being said, I'm Armor Gaming, and I will see you all next time.